If you ever wished you can clone yourself at work, meet Optimizely Opal. It has out-of-the-box AI agents that learn your brand, plug into your existing stack, and automate your work that used to take weeks. Requests, revisions, approvals, all of it. Poof. See it at optimizely.com/AI. What is up? We're back to the Marketing Millennials podcast, and I am doing another special episode with you and dropping one of the best sessions at Marketingland Festival 2025. It features two absolute operators, Kyle Coleman, Global VP of Marketing at ClickUp, and one of the sharpest guys in B2B right now, and Gaurav, COO of ClickUp. He is leading all things revenue across both product-led and sales-led growth. And in this episode today, they break down why product-led growth and sales-led growth is a false choice, how to actually measure incrementality, how demand creation and demand capture work together, why messaging consistency is a superpower, and how AI is changing both motions for good. It's one of the most tactical episodes you'll hear, and it's backed by real operator wisdom. Okay, let's get into it. And if you want more sessions and see sessions from Marketingland Festival 2025, you can come into the Marketingland community, or we're also launching Marketingland 2026 soon, but you can register in the community as well. Okay, into the episode. Bye.
Welcome to the Marketing Millennials, the No BS Marketing Podcast. I'm Daniel Murray, and join me for unfiltered conversations with the brains behind marketing's coolest companies. The one request I tell our guests, stories or it didn't happen. Get ready to turn the up.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this session at Marketingland. We're in the growth stage. We're very excited to be talking about a topic that is near and dear to both mine and Gaurav's heart here, which is the best of both worlds. How does product-led growth and sales-led growth win together? We're going to dive deep into these topics. Before we do, though, let's start with a couple intros so that you all know why you should be listening to us. We have some things to say, and we want to establish a little credibility first. So, Gaurav, who are you? What do you do?
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for kicking us off. So hello, everyone. I'm Gaurav. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at ClickUp, responsible for all things revenue across PLG and SLG. Hence, we are here to share some learnings that we have had. Kyle, back to you.
Beautiful. And I'm Kyle Coleman. I'm Global VP of Marketing here at ClickUp. I'm more focused on the sales-led side, but as you will come to learn, the PLG and SLG motions at ClickUp are inextricably linked. We can't really do one without the other and vice versa. And so, my purview is mostly focusing on the demand programs, sales development programs, sales programs that are driving our sales-led motion. But there are so many tentacles into and across the aisle for our entire PLG engine that it's been very interesting for us to unpack all of that. So let's dive in. Gaurav, you've been here now at ClickUp for 4 years. How long have you been here?
About 4 years now, getting to 4 years. Yeah.
How do you decide? How you have a finite budget. You have to make a decision about what to invest in, what teams to grow, what programs to run. How do you decide whether you're going to build a PLG engine or build a sales-led engine? What goes through your mind?
It's the favorite word I have, right? Incrementality. Yeah. There's a running joke internally that me and Kyle have in ClickUp, like, what's Gaurav's favorite word? It's incrementality. But to sincerely answer your question, Kyle, I think it comes down to a lot of the world phrase PLG and SLG as if you have to do one of them. You can't do both. And I think that's the wrong way to look at it. The same way as commercial versus upmarket is a wrong way to look at it. These are all false dichotomies that people create. The way to look at this is, try to do a little bit of both. Of course, there's constraints now. A lot depends on your business model as well. Does your business model support? If you have a large TAM, potentially PLG would work. But if you're only selling to top 100 companies out there, perhaps PLG is not a thing for you, right? So there are clear business limitations across which one should apply more than the other. But outside of that, assuming you're running a software business that has a few million people that can use the product, your price points can range from 10 grand to say 100 grand to $1 million. If you have all that breadth in business, then you could argue that you could make both work. So do not fall into that false dichotomy. What's more important is you try both of them, see what is truly incremental to the business. What I mean by that is if I put $1 here, do I get an ROI? Can I attribution is a sinful word. Let's not use the word attribution, but can I directionally measure and say that if I put $1 here, I perhaps am getting $2 back? If yes, then yeah, keep putting the dollar there, because as executives in a startup, our goal is to find opportunities where we can make investments such that those investments return back at a very healthy level. So that's the game we are in. It's managing a portfolio. And you should be managing both PLG and SLG and making investments based on the ROI that you're getting or the incremental lift to the business based on the investment made.
Love that. And I know another way that you've thought about it, and I've heard you speak about this, and this really resonates with me for a variety of reasons, is that it's not necessarily PLG versus SLG, that, again, a false dichotomy, as you mentioned. It's more about what are the things that we're doing to create demand, and what are the things that we're doing to capture demand or harvest that demand. Talk us through, well, what do you mean by that? That demand creation, demand capture, how does that mental model work?
That's a great question, Kyle. I think that's the crux of all of this. When I say demand creation, what I mean by that is, can you go out in the market and for someone who doesn't know about you, create an intent and a desire to talk to you and seriously consider your product, right? So that's demand creation. And then there's demand harvesting, that, hey, I need your product. How do I buy? And interestingly, you can apply sales on both. For example, sales can go like great sellers know how to create demand. They can go spend time with your buyers in those customer accounts, understand their pain point, and tell them about the art of possible and create demand. But sales can also be order takers on the other side, where a hand raiser comes in that's extremely high intent. And now what you're doing is you're running a great deal and you're servicing that customer and ensuring that they have what they need. Similarly, on the PLG side, you could either just be harvesting demand created by sales, and now the customer is transacting through self-serve, or you could be creating demand, run some amazing top of the funnel marketing. People are using your product to further deepen their intent, and now they're raising their hand that sales can fulfill. So you're 100% right. The way to look at this is what is creating demand and what is harvesting demand. And in any revenue machine, creating demand is significantly harder than harvesting demand. So that's what this comes down to. And you have to be able to do both in a way that the net economics of your business work out. Kyle, on this point, how have you seen like sales? Because you come from that world, right? But at the same time, you are one of the few leaders who I admire so much that you grew up on the sales side, but then moved to the marketing side. How do you see this interplay between demand creation and demand harvesting happening, especially as you move to more sales heavy motions?
Yeah, it's a great question, Gaurav, and it's something I've spent a lot of time not just thinking about, but and training teams against, but also actioning in real life. And it's part of the reason why, as you mentioned, I cut my teeth and grew up through sales and sales development, and have for that reason, a pretty unique perspective on what it takes to be an effective marketer with respect to demand generation in particular. And a lot of it, I'm sure many people have heard that I think maybe 10 years ago, it took 7 touches for something to stick in somebody's mind. You have to see a brand or hear the value prop or see the commercial, the billboard, whatever, 7 times before that brand has really stuck with you. That was 10 years ago. That was 15 years ago. Now we are inundated every single day with God knows how many ads and banners and messages and commercials and podcast interruptions and all the rest. It's like, it's so hard to keep track. I would not be at all surprised if that number has doubled. From it used to take 7 touches. Now it takes 15 touches, 20 touches to create that demand. So how do you do that? You need to have not just some sort of presence across so many different channels, outbound, ads, hopefully PLG, all these different channels, but you need consistency in what you're saying. You need consistency with what people think about you. You need a brand promise that is consistent and deliverable across all these different channels, because that is what will ultimately create that demand. And so in the past, prior to joining ClickUp, I had built that engine through sweat and tears and really without any product help, frankly. Like we had kind of, at my previous company, we had kind of a PLG motion, but we kind of sunset it. At other companies, I built the demand engine at Looker and then again at Clary, and there was no PLG component at all. So building that brand awareness, building that demand creation muscle was brute force. It was outbound emails, it was executive touch points, it was VIP dinners, it was trade shows, it was all of the things that you need to do. And now what's been so interesting about being at ClickUp is I've understood that PLG is just another channel to add into that mix. And it makes that mixture of channels so much more effective because you get a totally different delivery of that brand promise. And so I'm starting to see the universes come together and starting to see how this PLG plus SLG can work really well together.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're 100% right, because ultimately what both these channels need is very strong messaging that can move the hearts and minds of your users and your prospects. And you're 100% right. Like, the right teams know how to come up with messaging both at the user level and the buyer level, and use that central platform that can scale across different levels in the organization, but it's still that same messaging. And instead of making it, early on when I had just joined ClickUp, there was just so much divide that there was a camp of people that felt like this is very PLG message. We used to have this message called one app to rule them all. And a few people have had very strong POVs that message does not work on the sales side of the house, because sellers don't want that. Although that's not true now. If you look at what's happening, the entire marketing is going through consolidation. Our buyers love us. This, like, you are championing some of this, Kyle. We have millions of dollars in active pipeline today that is all built on, like, consolidating the AI sprawl and moving people away from, like, having to buy 10 different AI tools to just buying one. So consolidation, removing sprawl is a very clear strategy. And again, as you said, right, like, people end up thinking about it too tactically versus going deep. And if you go deep, you'll find that there's enough messaging that you can come up with that can work for both. And now both the motions are compounding versus taking away from each other.
That's right. And I'm really glad you said that, because I think a really important frame for the people that are listening to this, really focus on marketing, really focus on growth, is there's this tried and true and potentially another false piece of logic here, that PLG marketing has to be feature focused. And what's really interesting, and the evolution that I think we've been on, is to say, well, what if we borrowed some best practices from B2B marketing and started evangelizing the problem that we solve a little bit more, and then just let the product speak for itself with how it actually solves it in the product experience that people have. So if we're more forward and more consistent with this concept of sprawl, the AI sprawl that we solve, this work sprawl that we solve, if we're consistent with that messaging across all the different entry points that we have, and we're getting people into the product, seeing is believing. We want to show them how our product can solve that problem of sprawl in the way that we get them on board and new user onboarding and all the rest. And so I think that you can be really creative, and you can approach things differently by focusing on the problem that you solve, evangelizing that problem. That works very well for an enterprise kind of tops down sale. And I think the same thing can be true for a bottoms up PLG sort of sale. It just requires you to think differently and to take different bets.
This is interesting. The ultimate, if you look at PLG companies, who are the ultimate examples of that? Consumer companies, right? Like a shampoo company, a soap company, they're all PLG company because they're all product-led growth. The interesting thing about those companies is when the product is commoditized, which is where software is headed, you don't sell a soap because of the size of the bar. You sell because of a bigger brand theme that you create around it, because it's brand affinity that invites people. So to your point that you said, right, like, features matter, yes, but how do you build that brand around your product so people feel inspired and they want to associate with you? I think that's ultimately what drives true moat in consumer marketing. In fact, I would say brand is a much bigger moat in consumer than it has been even in B2B. And that plays up over and over again. So you're spot on that finding those anchor points in bigger problems that we solve, in bigger solutions, how you carry yourself, all those are extremely important things for any brand to nail. In fact, more and more B2B brands would begin to do that.
I think that's right. And it's really interesting that both work. Like, you can go the problem evangelism and we solve this problem route, or you can go a more feature oriented route. And like, insurance companies are another great example of this. So we have Geico, that's 15 minutes could save you 15% or more, very feature focused. And then we have Allstate, the masters of mayhem. The mayhem is the big problem they're evangelizing. And if you go with Allstate, you're going to solve this mayhem problem. Those are opposite ends of the spectrum. They both work. But what do they both do? They have been consistent on this message for years. And well, maybe Geico has gone a little far astray, but like they were consistent for years and years and years and years. And I think that's really what it's all about. You're trying to own that property in the brains of so many people that you're trying to influence. And that's what effective marketing is. It compels people to take some sort of action. And now, as we layer in the PLG component here, in the old world, prior to my having a PLG product to sell, my call to action would always be talk to a salesperson. And guess what people don't want to do as much right now? They don't want to talk to salespeople. They want to educate. They want to get their hands dirty. They want to play around. So now I have different arrows in my quiver from a call to action standpoint. As I'm educating, as I'm owning this real estate in people's minds, as I'm compelling them to take action, we can go down the more traditional B2B talk to sales route, or we can go get started. Jump in now. Use this template. Here's this AI agent you can use. Go, get your hands dirty. We'll be here when you need us, but go try this. We know you're going to love it. And so you get, ClickUp, we have optionality. And now this is very important. This is a question I'll throw back to you, Gaurav. Our go-to-market motion can only be as strong as our product. And if we're making this promise that we have the agent, we have the template, we have the workflow library, and then they get into the product and it sucks, that's not good. Yeah. That's not going to drive any revenue. So how do you think about like that product experience, and how do you work cross-functionally with the product team to deliver on that?
So ultimately, all marketing can do is pour some gasoline on the fire, right? Like we are the only true mode that exists is product, and then marketing can build a brand mode and a distribution mode around it. So I think that's something for all of us to acknowledge, that if you're stuck in a place where product is good, not good, you shouldn't be there, because you don't want to be the person that's overselling a dream. So done. Now, going back to the example that you said, right? Like we will do some messaging at the top. People will have an inspiration to come try something. Previously, they'll go to the sales team, and then the sales team would provision the product for them. Now they go to the PLG side. I think what happens is your core product has to be good in both cases. But when you send people directly on the PLG side, a lot of the adjacent areas around how the product is experienced, onboarding, sign up, activation, UX becomes incredibly important, because unlike a sales-led growth funnel, you don't have a success person teaching you every step of the way on how to use the product. So the product has to be extremely intuitive. And we are so lucky for that to be one of the strongest pillars in our product team in ClickUp. In fact, UX is perhaps the most important pillar in our product framing philosophy, because we look at everything from a perspective of how does this make the user experience. And I think that's what you have to prioritize over and over again. And you have to track your metrics, and you have to see, when we ship this, are more people getting to this feature? Are they finding value? Is that activity translating to economic value towards the end? But you have to obsess about every tiny detail on the user experience. And I think that's what we do really, really well. The amount of obsession I see on every small detail, the level of user research that we do, surveys, NPS. We do a lot of work, not just around building the product, but around wrapping the product in a way that people can use it. And if you don't have that, you will struggle to build a very strong PLG funnel. And by the way, we talk about it as if this is just in context of B2B. Actually, that's not true. 20 years ago, Amazon started e-commerce. People were shopping in retail, and Amazon was like, we need to digitize commerce. Like, what is PLG? PLG, in a way, is digitizing commerce. That happened in e-commerce, in retail. Then more recent, in the last decade, you've seen that happen in fintech. People are buying $1 million mortgages directly online with very little human touch. Like, think about it. Like, why do you think your $10,000 software or your $50,000 software matters more than a person's like an entire life's work? Oftentimes it's buying a house. People are doing those decisions online. So previously you used to buy the way you would get a loan is you would call a loan officer, and you would a Rocket Mortgage would call you back, and now you'll go to lengthy to and fro's over the phone call, and you'll try to get to a place that makes sense. Now you can do all of that online. So digitization of fintech happened in the last decade, and that is the journey we are going through right now. And whenever that happens, you need very strong product thinkers and of course marketing and growth thinkers to think through how the experience would be, but very strong product thinkers that can reimagine what the user experience of that product should be.
Yeah, and that's a really good segue into this whole concept of AI. I feel like a lot of people expect just to slap AI onto their logo and say, all right, we've created a new demand funnel here. This is going to be irresistible now. We used to be Acme, and now we're Acme AI, and the pipeline is just going to come pouring in. The new users are going to come pouring in. But ultimately what ends up happening is you make another bad brand promise. And if you just slap AI onto your logo, or if you just are blasé about your AI capabilities, or if you expect people to get in and just figure it out, you're creating a really bad experience that's going to end up hurting your PLG funnel and your SLG funnel. So how do you think about that when it comes to ClickUp's AI capabilities, the agents, the workflows, the dashboards, the things that we have that our customers are relying on to execute core parts of their day-to-day? How do you think about delivering those AI capabilities in that same intuitive way that's powerful while still easy to use?
The problem in marketing usually isn't lack of ideas, it's lack of time. If your to-do list keeps getting away from you, you should look at Optimizely Opal. It's an AI agent platform built specifically for marketing. Use their pre-built agents or build your own powerful agents and workflows completely code-free. Optimizely Opal learns your brand, plugs into your existing tools, and can automate personalization, compliance, reporting, and way more. See what it could take off your plate at optimizely.com/AI.
I think it comes down to you have to make it super easy for people to try it out and feel like they are co-building that experience with you in the product versus you. Like, it doesn't, you can't go to a place where you say, we have done it all for you, just come and click one thing and start using it. I think that's a great vision to have. But you know what's even more powerful? When you do it 90% of the way there, but you invite some participation from your users so they feel like they have a strong voice in how they want to set it up. And that goes a long, long way because they feel like there's some buy-in from them in how it was deployed. So I think that's going to be extremely important for these AI native features, that yes, you want to get as close to the finish line as possible, but you want to keep a little bit of room. Maybe it's just clicking a button, but some room out there. The other reason to do that is AI is not fail proof. AI will fail. So you don't want to build a brand around this thing that, hey, we get 100% of the things right 100% of the time. That will backfire. So the more collaborative that experience can be, that's why we strongly believe that AI will not replace human, AI will augment human. AI will multiply human capacity, which means you still need a human in the loop. And I think it's that co-creation between AI and humans that will create magic versus someone just saying, I have the best AI product. No, I have the best AI platform on which humans can work. I have this question for you, Kyle. Like, you've been leading the charge on like AI first marketing for a while now. You did that. I mean, in some aspects at Clary. Clary had a lot of like features ahead of its time than you did at Copy AI. Now you're doing it at ClickUp. How have you seen that that problem being solved?
It's a really interesting question, Gaurav, and it's a tough problem to solve because the inclination that we, especially from a marketing standpoint, have is to talk about how easy everything is to do. But the problem is, if something is very easy to do and the expectation is I just click to install and now I can use it, it's probably not going to be customized. And what people are realizing now with these AI solutions is that they have to be customized. Otherwise, the outputs are generic and unusable. And so how do you find the right promise to make to somebody, and how do you make it as easy as possible for them to give the inputs that they need, they collect the intake that you need to collect in order to create something that genuinely is usable for them from an output standpoint? So you have to set the right expectations up front, and we have to lean into a lot of what you're just talking about. The power here is its customization. And it doesn't require you to be a technical whiz or prompting expert or PhD AI person. All you need to know in the case of ClickUp is you need to be an expert on your domain, on your processes. How do you get not from A to B? That's easy. How do you get from A to Z? What are all the steps that is required to run that process? Where are the areas of friction when you're running that process? Okay, great. Now we have an understanding of the process you want to codify. And now we can go and replicate that with an AI agent. You can go and replicate that with an AI agent with our agent builder. And so we help people understand that this is not something that you snap your fingers, because when you've used a tool like that, you go into ChatGPT, write me a blog post, and the blog post sucks. Because of course it does, because you tried to just go in and skip the hard work. We've tried to make it clear to people that the clearer an understanding and the stronger a perspective you have on what good looks like, the more useful our software is going to be to help create that outcome for you. And so we try and be honest. I mean, if you try and trick people into getting them into the funnel, they're going to be disappointed. So be honest up front. Make sure you're emphasizing what you're really great at. Make sure you're emphasizing that this is still a human first exercise, and we're not outsourcing your thinking. We're codifying your thinking to create great outputs.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we're coming up on time, but maybe that's a great way to finish, right? That marketing's job isn't to just deliver boilerplate messaging at the top and be like, hey, this is one all be all. I think it's our job to then come up with highly context messaging that is relevant to people and product experiences that is relevant to people and that can drive them to action. I think you have to inspire them to be a problem solver themselves versus trying to come. You don't want to be, you want to be seen as the tool that empowers the hero of the story to be successful. You don't want to be the hero of the story.
That's right.
And I think that is what great marketing does.
I couldn't agree more. And what I will say, one last thought is how we're talking about PLG and SLG. And what I've been saying is now at ClickUp, I have two calls to action. I can have people talk to sales. I can have people get into the product. In both cases, I need robust human playbooks to capitalize on that demand that we've created, to harvest that demand that I've created. So I think for B2B marketers, you're very used to, okay, what is that contact sales funnel? You have your SDR playbooks, you have your AE playbooks, you have your CSM. Okay, great. We know that pretty well. The PLG to sales universe is so much more dynamic. It's so much more signal-based, usage signal-based. There are so many different avenues that you can take. It matters so much that you have a really, really solid data infrastructure to understand who are the 10 users across all of Netflix that are using ClickUp, and how do we have one consistent view of them to determine what's the right human touch point to architect. There's a big data science component of signal monitoring and signal management that makes for effective PLG to SLG, which is maybe a topic for another time, Gaurav. But as you said, we are out of time. Any last thoughts, closing thoughts?
I think this was great. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's a very dynamic world. So don't frame things as zero sum. Be more dynamic and really try everything and make investments wherever things work. That's what we did at ClickUp. And I think we have one of the best PLG plus SLG motions combined together. And that's a leading edge. Not many companies can claim that. So yeah, go build that motion.
Good stuff, my friend. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening. Keep tuning in to hear more great insights from the coolest marketers from around the world. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and follow the Marketing Millennials podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, I would greatly appreciate you giving us a 5-star rating. It helps bring more marketers into our community.